Miami's 2023 season is just around the corner, and excitement is ramping up despite the lack of preseason results. Hello everybody, you are listening to Miami Total Football Radio, where the beautiful game collides with passion and analysis. We also go by the name of Miami Total Football Radio, and I am one of your co-hosts. My name is Franco Panizo, back with you guys after a 2-week hiatus. We did not expect to take last week off, but we did just because schedules did not match up. But no worry, we have a jam-packed show for you, and we will do it, hopefully, within our desired time limit. So, joining me on this weekly, usually, bilingual, Inter Miami focused podcast this week is only one of the usual members of the team, and that is none other than Andrea Yanez, a.k.a. Andreita, a.k.a. Ajicita. Andrea, welcome back after a couple of weeks hiatus. How are you doing?
Hi, Franco. Nice to be back. Nice to be back in the middle of things. Excited to what we're gonna talk in this podcast, and also excited because there is no Jose, so we're gonna fight it up, and no one is gonna interrupt. I'm kidding. It's gonna be fun. We miss Jose. We miss Steve. We miss them, but we're gonna take it on this week.
It's you versus I this week. Actually, we might find ourselves to agree a lot. You never know. Depends on the topic. But there's a couple things you mentioned there that I want to dive into quickly, because this podcast is all about Inter Miami, and we provide you with all the latest team news, updates, analysis, opinions, inside information, general punditry, and much more via a group of seasoned South Florida-based reporters. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is, you said Jose's not here, but Jose will be there on Tuesday when we play the second ever Inter Miami media game. And this one's at Drive Pink Stadium. And Andrea, for you listeners, does not know what I'm about to share with her. So I'm very curious to hear your reaction after I say the following words. Because the news is emerging as we speak. The details are emerging with regards to that game. Andrea, you and I are on the same team. Jose Armando is not. He will be playing for the opponents. So it's you and I and a group of other media colleagues against Jose and a bunch of other media members. Now there's two teams that will take the field on Tuesday at Drive Pink Stadium in the afternoon. One will be called Team Heartbeat. Head coach, DeAndre Yedlin. That is the team Jose Armando, a.k.a. Cinco, a.k.a. Island Jose, is on. Okay? Andrea, you and I will be teammates in our beloved locker room, our well tight-knit locker room. Our head coach is Josef Martinez. And our team name is Team La Noche. So, these two teams will face off on Tuesday at Drive Pink Stadium. Guess who the head referee will be?
Who? Phil.
None other than head of communications for Inter Miami, Rafael Cabrera. so Rafa, our esteemed colleague, who obviously works for Inter Miami, he will be deciding who to give yellow cards to and red cards to on Tuesday. So behave yourself, Andrea. Behave yourself. If you go as hard into the tackles as you do on this podcast, I have no doubt in my mind Rafa is red carding you. Absolutely.
Wow, that's a nice scoop, Franco. And I have just one thing. Jose should have been in our team.
He should have been, but he's not. And we'll just have to score a bunch of goals on him. And unfortunately, that's just the way it'll have to be. Guess what? There's also going to be a commentator for this game.
Ooh.
Someone will be commentating this game. And I don't know what he did to be punished with this, I'm not going to say a privilege, but with the punishment that is having to commentate the media game. But it's none other than Thomas Rongen, who will be broadcasting or narrando nuestro partido, our media game. So Inter Miami's pulling out all the stops for this media game, the second ever one. First one was late last year, and it was more of a training session with a quick
yeah.
little scrimmage at the end. But this one, we're getting jerseys. We're going to be decked out. There's apparently going to be interviews beforehand, and there might be some clips that make it out. It's going to be a much more official media game. So, I'm looking forward to it. Kudos to Inter Miami for putting that together. 30-minute game, so only two 15-minute halves. But I don't know if I could last longer than 30 minutes. Maybe 45, but yeah, 30 might be a good number to.
Yeah, that's a good number. And remember, it's on the field, on normal field. Last time we played on a reduced field, so I don't know if all the members of the media.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I definitely can't run.
I'm excited to be in the locker room with Josef Martinez because he has our kind of personality, so it's gonna be fun.
It should be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. I imagine
what I don't like is they divided my household. Jose and I should have been teammates.
You got to get stuck in, Andrea. Now you've got to go for that 50-50 a little tougher. For Jose,
what exactly?
Jose didn't do the dishes this weekend. You go a little, Get that studs up. Yes. Yeah, get that studs up, on the slide, though, so Rafa doesn't give you a red card.
Listen.
We'll come back with... we're honest on this podcast. We will come back next week and provide a brief synopsis.
In the last media game, I not met someone, so that was good for me.
Did you? I don't remember that. Did you really?
I don't want to say the name, but I not met someone.
Who?
No, I'm not gonna say.
Okay. Was it me? I don't think it was me.
No,
right?
it was not you. We were in the same team.
Okay. I was gonna say, what happened? Okay, all right. Well, listen, we're honest on this podcast when it comes to the analysis and providing our thoughts. We will be honest next week, regardless of how we do. I have a good feeling we're gonna win. I know the other team has Jenny Chu, which I know she can ball. CBS side-by-side reporter. Or sideline reporter, sorry, and she's one to watch for sure. But I think we can do it. I think we've got this.
Listen,
with
it's
Josef
gonna
Martinez
be hard
with the tactics,
playing against Jose because I'm gonna tell the podcast listener Jose is a good player and he has a nice touch, so it's gonna be hard.
I will mark. Listen, if you're gonna go easy on Jose and be all soft on him, I'm gonna go mark him. Don't worry about it. I got him. That's it. Jose, you're hearing this because you're not here. Listen to this. I am going to mark you, my friend. Marca personal. All right. Okay. Well, we'll leave it there for now with regards to next week's media game. We'll leave it with regards to us. Let's focus on Inter Miami. We've got a lot to get to, including the most recent preseason results, the form of some players, and the overall team heading into week 1, which is just over a week away, and much, much more. So, let's get to it. Okay, Andrea, Inter Miami time. Before we get to some of the more recent preseason results, and we will provide you with the scores, of course, let's start with one of the most recent developments, something that Phil Neville said in a recent availability, kind of flew under the radar a little bit, but it's essentially that he said Inter Miami is practically set on playing with 2 forwards this year. That's the plan. That, they're not really focusing so much on having a 10 like they did in years past. He even mentioned Rodolfo Pizarro, Gonzalo Higuain, and Alejandro Pozuelo by name when making this reference. When I heard Phil Neville say that, I thought to myself, well, maybe that's it, really, for the 4-4-2 diamond. Maybe they're going to get away from that because from what we saw, it didn't really work. There was, like we said, a black hole in that midfield. The ball wasn't really progressing from the 2 games that we could see. Maybe from what Inter Miami staff saw, and this is just my supposition, not information, my supposition, maybe they're like, you know what? It's not going to work without a true number 10. Let's switch it up. So if they're not going to play with a 10, but they're hell-bent on playing with 2 strikers, then that means the formation changes. And I think we could see, although I know you and I disagreed, and maybe we'll start here, maybe we'll see that 5-3-2 that we saw during the second half of that friendly against St. Louis City. Because again, if they've used it, even with a bunch of MLS 2 players and some first team players, or players that are on the MLS roster, then I imagine that they're training that or using that in some capacity in practice. So, your thoughts on if there's no number 10, Do you think it's the 5-3-2, or if you want to call it a 3-5-2, you can, because the wingbacks were very advanced and they were pushed high up. But do you think that's the look? Do you think they go to a back four? Because Phil has said in other interviews since then, like they're playing with a back four. He's mentioned back four. I don't buy that though. I don't buy it.
I think maybe if he plays with two in the front, I think it's gonna be a back four, because you cannot, like, you'll be shooting yourself if you play with two attackers but you put five defenders in. So what's the point in putting two attackers? So I don't think he's playing with five in the back. I think he's gonna stick in the four, but with four in the back. But we could see a variation, because maybe sometimes he can play with 4-3-3 or maybe 4-4-2. I don't know.
But he's not going to play 4-3-3 if he's saying it's a two forward setup that they're going with.
But
I mean, there's only two options, Andrea. I see. Again, if there's no 10, right? You take that 10 out. That rules out. Let's say that rules out a 4-1-3-2.
Yeah,
right?
but
because
you know 4-3-3.
4-3. But then I don't think you have two forwards if you're playing a 4-3-3.
No, yeah, you could have two forwards, because you can have Josef Martinez and Campana, and you can bring either or Stefanelli or Ariel Lassiter or Robert Taylor, whoever wants to play on the other side. He playing on the other side, and then in the back that way.
But then you're playing with three forwards, Andrea. You're not playing with two.
But you asked me how can he do that? But playing with that Stefanelli or either Robert Taylor can come down and form. That is what I'm telling you. I think he's gonna have a dynamic formation, because it's not gonna be a static. Sometimes they're gonna have five in the back, and sometimes they're gonna have four in the back, depending on the game. I don't think we're gonna see this team is not gonna be a team like you say. He's gonna play like this every game.
He said, we're practically going to play every game with two forwards. Now that's right forwards. Now, right? He said that on February 10th, right? February 10th. Things can change.
And then if you play with 4-3-3, for example, then you can have Pizarro, and you can have Mota, and you can have Gregory playing in the middle. They can play together.
Andrea, again, if you're playing with three forwards, then you're not playing with two. Like, you have two out of the three, but you're not playing with a two striker setup, which I think is what Phil Neville was saying. So I don't think it's a 4-3-3. I think there's only a few options here if they're going to play, if my interpretation of what he said is correct. It's either 4-2-2-2, and then that midfield, that second line of the midfield, they're, like Jose said a couple of weeks back, they'd be playing out wide. So you have two, essentially, sixes, two wingers, and then two strikers. So no 10. You just have that part of the field's empty.
Mm-hmm.
That's one possibility, in my opinion. The other possibility is what we saw in that second half against St. Louis City, where they played, if you want to call it a 3-5-2, go for it, because they did push up a bit more than we saw even maybe last year. And I think that I think that I can understand the idea behind that if they do go that route. Because clearly, and they've said it all preseason, they want to be a more attack-minded team. They want to score more goals. So clearly, they want to push more numbers forward. They don't have a 10. Okay, so they're going to focus, based on what Phil Neville was saying, on two forwards. How do you get those two forwards the ball if you don't have a number 10? Service out wide. So that's where DeAndre Yedlin and I'm assuming Franco Negri will have massive roles and massive responsibilities with regards to the attack. Doesn't all fall on their shoulders, but they will have a big part to say in how well the attack does. Because if you don't have a pure 10 in that midfield, who's going to feed those two strikers?
Yeah, it has to be a 4-4-2, or that variation that you say 4-2-2, whatever, however you want to call it, but it's a 4-4-2. I think that is if he wants to play with two, that will be the most reasonable because of the type of player he has. But we've seen Phil try in this preseason. We have seen him try a lot of variations, because they were playing a game with Montreal, and from what I know from that game, he played a 4-3-3 formation. So we have seen a different side of Inter Miami. I think Phil doesn't know. Maybe Phil was counting to get Pozuelo back Maybe he thought that he could get Pozuelo back. But I think he's going to have to try to adapt because he doesn't have a true number 10. Yes, some players can take up that mantle, but
clearly no one's a
no
natural
one is
number
a
10.
natural. Exactly.
Nadie es un 10 nato on this
Exactly.
roster. You could say Pizarro maybe, but...
Yeah, but that's not his favorite position. It's Stefanelli. And we've seen Coco also try to be a 10 in that scrimmage that we went to. But that is their true position. So I guess Phil will have to adapt to what he has. And like you were saying, I agree with you that like you were saying, he has to play to the strengths that he has. And if he wants to play with two in attack with two strikers, maybe not two in attack. That is what I meant to say with the 4-3-3. Two strikers. Then he needs to play with four in the back. I think that is that, and that will bring balance in defense and not leave the team like exposed like it was a couple of times last year.
So this has been my initial impression from just gathering preseason. It's what I think. So I could be wrong, could be right, no idea. We'll see what happens when the season gets going. Just my initial impression is that obviously in MLS the money goes into the attack, right? Like there's a imbalance between attack and defense in MLS because a lot of the money goes to the attack and not as much goes on the defense. That's why you see DPs fill attacking roles for the most part, not so much on the defensive side. MLS does that by design because they think that just having goals, even if it means poor play at the back, or imbalanced play at the back, goals will lead to excitement, which will lead to fans in seats and eyes on TVs or phones or computers or mobile devices or whatever you're watching on these days. So I think Inter Miami understands that's just MLS's nature. But I think they might be overcompensating from what they were last year and maybe the year before that when they started the year as more of a defensive-minded team that looked to counter, that looked to hit on the wings. I think they're maybe overcompensating a little bit too much by trying to go so gung-ho and go so attack-minded. Maybe it pays off. But I have questions, and I've said it since, the initial, maybe not the initial pod, but the pod after the first preseason game we saw against Vasco da Gama. I have questions about whether the defense will be able to hold up, if there will be enough of a balance in the overall team's function to offset what the attack can give you.
Exactly, and especially since Phil revealed that Sergey is injured, so I don't know if we're gonna see him on the first game of the season. So it's very close. So Inter Miami will have to, I don't know, pivot, and maybe that plays a part in what formation we're gonna see in the first game of the season.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's just me. I wouldn't be surprised if it's that 5-3-2 or 3-5-2, whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what we see.
Well, listen, if Sergey is not available, me personally, it's my opinion. Again, we're giving our opinion. He's here. I wouldn't trust back four when you have McVeigh and Mavica or Sailor. Well, Sailor is injured. When you have them, and it wouldn't be your strongest defense. So I could see, as you are saying, a possibility that play with five in the back, bringing someone else in the defense, because I don't think a back four with those two players is going to work. If you don't have Sergey, then your back four is missing its head, because that is what he is. No, he's the one who is coming in to replace Damian Lowe.
Right. So we'll see how they go. We'll see how things play out over the next week and a half. I titled the last pod "Diamonds Are Forever" with a question mark because I wasn't clear on that diamond midfield, that 4-4-2 shape that we saw them in. I didn't know if they had it shown enough in preseason games without a true number 10 to, warrant sticking with it in the long term. Now, Phil Neville did say in that interview on February 10th, we'll find a system that fits us or suits us. Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. To me, that reads as if maybe that 4-4-2 diamond, I won't say they've thrown it away into the trash can, But maybe it's now on the back burner. Maybe it's a weapon in their arsenal, but maybe it's not their main look. Like it was, like it appeared like it was going to be during the initial weeks of preseason, especially with Pozuelo, like you mentioned.
Yeah, listen,
who is not going to be resigned.
That changed, yes, because Pozuelo went to Turkey.
He hasn't been officially announced yet, but by all accounts,
yeah, I guess because of the earthquake and all of that,
right,
that horrible thing that happened.
Right.
But he flew there, and sources there are saying that he's going to play there. He's going to play there the rest of the season. So I guess, and Phil said in the media availability this week that they were not bringing anyone else in.
Right.
So
correct.
It is what it is. So I guess also with that in mind, I think now he can seriously be thinking of doing all these changes and all these things that we are talking about right now in the pod.
Right.
All our opinions. And I guess if we think about that, I guess he's thinking about that too, because he doesn't have a number 10. And he's not going to have it before February 25.
Correct. In a more recent interview, Phil Neville said the window's pretty much closed. Unless something, out of the blue that fits with the budget, comes into play here, this is going to be the roster more or less for day one of the regular season. So be curious to see what formation they come out in and how they approach things. We haven't seen it a game in a couple of weeks now. We will get one more opportunity to do so against Austin FC on Saturday at Drive Pink Stadium in the final preseason friendly tune-up amistoso. I don't expect Phil Neville to tip his hand or show his cards in that game. I think, you'll see some players get minutes, 45 minutes, and then I don't think he's showing all his tactics on Saturday.
No, I don't think he's showing us his true cards on Sunday. I agree with you with that.
Saturday. So yes.
Saturday, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so let's recap some of the more recent preseason games now that we've touched on the formation. Because that's right, Pozuelo is reported to be signing with Turkish club Konyaspor. And he did post an image on a plane. And he said, let's go. So, looks like all signs are pointing to him signing there. It hasn't been announced yet. Probably or possibly because of the situation over there with the deadly, catastrophic earthquake that's impacted so many lives. Just an ugly situation there. So, maybe that's held him back. Thoughts and prayers with everyone that's been impacted by that. Maybe Pozuelo is waiting for some things to sort out before that becomes official. We'll see what happens there, but it does look like Inter Miami will not have a true number 10. So, switching gears to preseason. Since the last pod that we recorded, Inter Miami has played 2.5 preseason games because the other one is going on or is wrapping up here as we speak. So, what were those results? Okay, here we go. As I reported first on Miami Total Football Substack, when Inter Miami went to Sarasota to play the New England Revolution, it was a 2-2 draw. Leonardo Campana with a brace in that game. That match, that exhibition, also marked Josef Martinez's unofficial debut with the Herons. And he played about 20 minutes before coming off. Clearly a sign of that the team is working his way, working him back slowly. He was replaced by Robbie Robinson. Nonetheless, that game ended 2-2. Inter Miami had 2 separate leads in that game, but New England came back both times, and it was a stalemate in the end. That's what sources told me. Since then, they also played the Columbus Crew. And that was back in South Florida, back at the practice facility. Inter Miami lost that game 4-2. And now, on Wednesday night, they are playing CF Montreal, the team that they will play in the first game of the regular season. I don't have an update yet as to the score. You said that you have heard some details there?
Yes, I have heard that at least the first half finished with 2 Montreal goals, one of them scored by my favorite player in MLS. I'm not going to say, maybe the listeners know who he is.
No, you have to say it. You have to say it.
I'm joking, of course. Of course, I'm going to say scored by Romel Kyoto. So,
Honduran
International, yes. Romel Kyoto with Montreal. Now in this new era era, however you say it in English, of Hernan Lozada. Listen, let's wait and see. I guess Franco is going to have an update on that, how the game ended. But listen, not so much good results in this preseason for Inter Miami.
And that's where I would like to I'd like to quickly dive into with you here. Because we've talked about preseason, not only this winter, but last winter. And it's a talking point, when a new year begins and preseason starts. Like, how much do these results really matter? Whether you're winning, losing, drawing, how much does it matter? Andrea, like, at the end of the day, how you do in preseason will not decide whether you're at MLS Cup. Like, how you're doing in terms of results. Maybe the foundation you lay for the fitness and, et cetera, team building, and you could argue that. But in terms of results, no, not really. But can't say it does not impact team morale and the overall mood around the team and how players feel and if they're feeling a little bit more confident going into the regular season. Remember last year, Inter Miami won the Carolina Challenge Cup and, they were happy as can be holding the trophy. Now, that didn't really translate into anything during the regular season because they lost the first, they didn't win the first 5 games. It took them until the 6th game. So again, preseason results don't necessarily mean early season success, but I do think it impacts morale. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, especially for Inter Miami. Listen, in the time the team has been playing since their debut, they haven't had good beginnings in the season. They haven't had a stable beginning, so that is why this preseason was important for the team to build, like you said, physically, build a bond between the players. They kept a core, but sometimes when you bring someone new, it's important to build that relationship with the ones that were already here.
On and off the field.
On and off the field, exactly. So I think that is important in that aspect. The results are not, footballistically speaking, the results are not 100% important, but they are important to build morale, as you were saying, and especially for this team because they had a bad start with Diego Alonso. They had a bad start last year. They had a bad start the year before. So this team needs to get, and the results at the beginning of the season influence of them not getting into a better place at the end of the season. So they need to get into a place where they get some results in the first games. And to answer your question,
I was going to say, Andrea, where's the response?
I think preseason, yes, it's important. It's important. Maybe not 100% the results, but it's really important to build a team and to build their chemistry and to build their morale and to build their tactics.
When things go well for you, whether it means less or not, you get that little confidence. You get that little bit more pep in your step. But even if it's a little bit. If things don't go well for you, that can build up. That can build up. So the fact that they haven't won really, they've only beaten to date this CF Montreal preseason game, notwithstanding, because we don't know the result yet, the final result. If they've only won 1 to this point, I don't think necessarily that builds a whole lot of confidence going into the first game of the season. Now, if they beat CF Montreal on week 1, when the ball gets rolling and the game actually matters for points, then it doesn't make a difference. But if they lose that game, then it starts to snowball a little bit in terms of, we haven't really tasted victory in a while. I could see that going through the players' heads just because they just have been on the losing end and they're competitors. So preseason or not, they want to win. As a matter of fact, let's share an anecdote that I completely forgot to share when Inter Miami lost to St. Louis City. And I thought it was one of the most interesting moments that we were able to perceive there on the sideline. Andrea, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but as soon as I bring it up, you will remember. When the full-time whistle blew, someone on St. Louis City, one player, said something very, very interesting. Do you remember what he said?
You can say it.
He said, that was easy, and he got a little laugh from the group. I think he saw and noticed that there was media to the side, and he kind of, in my head, I just perceived him kind of being like, crap, I wish I could take that back. it was a off the cuff remark, but it was a remark nonetheless. And to me, that's an example of, if you do well in preseason or you get results in preseason, that helps add to your confidence. If you don't, I think it starts to creep in a little bit of doubt. Again, it doesn't matter. Once week 1 happens, if the Inter Miami wins, preseason the results are forgotten about altogether. But if they don't, and that feeling continues, then then you could be talking a little bit more about whether preseason results matter or not. But let's switch to some individuals here. Campana scored a brace in that game against the New England Revolution. One of the goals, I was surprised by the fact that he shared it on his Instagram account. It was a nice goal. Left-footed finish from outside the box. After some decent build-up from Inter Miami, they got a fortunate bounce along the way when the ball ricocheted off a defender and into the path of an Inter Miami player. But he got 2 goals. He has 4, or had 4 up until that point, in the preseason, which is a pretty good mark. It's off to a solid start. Again, preseason doesn't necessarily translate to regular season, but Campana has to be feeling good right about now with regards to his form heading into the start of the campaign.
Yeah, totally agree. It's important for him. It's important for him to get these goals, especially for a goal scorer. If we talked about preseason being important and all that, but if you look at the players individually, especially for a goal scorer, a delantero, it's a forward, it's important to get goals. So Campana getting goals in preseason is very important for him. He's going to get to the first game motivated. He's going to feel good. He's going to be feeling good, be feeling like the team made a good decision by keeping him and all of that. So it's important for a goal scorer to have a good preseason.
And this goes to the same point just now that we talked about collectively. If he's scoring, even if it's in preseason, that'll help his confidence. That'll raise his confidence a little bit going into week 1. I'm starting to think I was wrong when I said a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago that I thought Josef Martinez was the number 1 option at striker. Because with Campana on this form, and with the state that Josef Martinez,
did we tell you,
I
Franco?
knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. But listen. I will admit, I will raise my hand and admit when I think I got it wrong. And right now, the signs to me are pointing that Leo Campana, if they went 1 striker formation, which apparently they're not going to, but if they went with a 1 striker formation and it was a winner go home match and everyone's healthy, I think Campana's the guy now. I'm starting to think that.
Yeah.
We'll see. Josef Martinez Josef Martinez no está al 100%. He's not even close to 100%. So now once he gets his footing, then we can reassess, reevaluate. But, if Campana, who's younger, he's had his share of injuries too. But, if he can find this type of form in the regular season, like he did in the first half of last year, maybe even towards the tail end, the very last bit of last year, after he kind of got over his injury issues a little bit, although not really because he even suffered injury in one of the final games, then I think he'd be the number 1 striker on the depth chart. Even though Inter Miami's playing with 2, I think he'd be looked at as number 1.
I think he'll be the number 1. And listen, also Campana has a lot to play with. He's young and he's got a new contract, but he's trying to get into the national team of Ecuador, of his country. He's trying to get. And listen, Ecuador has a lot of good forwards, a lot of attacking players that are good. That is why he was left out of the World Cup roster that went to Qatar. So I think Campana has that in his mind and is going to work extra harder with Inter Miami to get there. And listen, Josef is already a star in his country and he's going to get a call up for the national team, either if he is scoring 2 goals in each game or if he doesn't score in 10 games. So that is a difference that you have to take into account.
I don't know if I agree with that, because if he's not scoring in 10 games and he's not at his healthiest, I don't know if you call him up internationally. But look, to your Campana Ecuador point, I think the opposite. I think, yes, he wants to get back in the picture, no doubt, but I think he might be a little freer now. He doesn't have that. I mean, it was a goal, and it's definitely a reason for motivation, but it also could be something that could stress you out a little bit. I need to make the World Cup. I think this might free him up a little bit. And one thing he touched on in a recent interview here in preseason was that he's changed some of his daily habits to try to stay healthier and avoid the injuries that kind of sidetracked his season last year. He said he's eating differently, just doing different things to try to keep his body in better shape, in more tip-top shape than he's in, because he's in good physical shape. So let's see how it goes for him. Andrea, speaking of Josef Martinez, who I just mentioned, sources told me made his debut against the New England Revolution, even if it was only for 20 minutes. At this point, right now, just over a week away from the start of the regular season, do you think he is in that first 11 in week 1?
I don't think so. Because he's not 100%, and you can risk him getting injured in the first game. So I think we're going to see Campana playing with another player. If I had to tell you who, I guess it would be Lassiter.
That's what I would think, yeah.
Because
he's
the one that has been used in this preseason. And I don't think Phil needs to risk Josef if he's not 100%.
Right.
Because he didn't get a complete preseason. He's a player that has had a big injury, that hasn't been the same, is not in his best shape 100%. So I think you need to take him slow. I think even he realizes that, and I think even he knows that maybe he doesn't start the first 2 games or something like that, because he needs to take care of his body to be in shape and to remember he only signed for a year. So Josef Martinez needs to perform this year to continue and to get another contract with Inter Miami or with other team in the league.
I agree with you. I don't think he starts in week 1. I hope he starts me next Tuesday.
Yes, hopefully.
I hope he starts me.
Because of this. Josef, no nos tires a la banca, por favor.
No, hacer comer banca just for that. No, listen, at this point, I don't think, the signs are pointing for him starting in week 1. I agree with you fully. I think it's going to be Campana and Ariel Lassiter. Just because Josef played 20 minutes in that game. There's been 2 preseason games since then. There could be a third one. But to me, clearly, if you're playing 20 minutes in your first game back, that's not just a fitness thing. That's we're looking out for your health thing. Right? Because if it's a fitness thing, you can play 30, maybe. You could play 45.
Exactly.
Like we saw some players do in that first game of preseason against Vasco da Gama. So I think they're building him back up slowly. I think it's going to take some time. I don't think we see him in week 1 against CF Montreal. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe next week. There are 5 substitutions now, so maybe that's a substitution that can be made at halftime. But the season is a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
So I don't think
see him in the last minutes, but I don't think we're gonna see him as a starter 100%.
Right.
He can come in the 70th, 80th minute if they're losing and Phil thinks that they can tie. I could maybe thinking about him, but I don't know if I'm 100% sure he doesn't start.
Yeah. I would
We
bet on
agree
that.
It's the end of the world.
Listen, I still, if we went into the formation a little bit more, I think we're going to get stuck in. But we've touched on that. We've covered that base this week already. All right, another player we need to talk about is Noah Allen. One of the players that we both thought, yet again we agree, was having, if not the best preseason, or was one of the players having one of the better preseasons for Inter Miami. He went down with an MCL injury in training. He is out, according to Phil Neville, for 4 to 5 weeks. Now, I don't think Noah Allen was shaping up to be a starter, regardless of his preseason form. But it is one less option to start the year with. It is a very important year for him, because there's the Under-20 World Cup, which he figures to take part in. So, hopefully the injury doesn't linger for him. It's a setback. Probably, a bit of a blow. It's. I won't compare it 100% to Ian Frey, but Ian Frey last year, I think most of us had Ian Frey as the best performer in preseason, or at least we did. And then he suffers a torn ACL for the second consecutive year in 2022. So a little bit similar. It is a knee injury. Won't be out as long, from what Phil Neville said, but a setback in what is an important year for Noah Allen. Your thoughts, Andrea?
Yeah, definitely a setback for him. Hopefully he can come back. Um, as Phil said, in 6 weeks. Hopefully it is like that, and it's not anything more serious, because with these knee injuries, you see players, they can come back, but then they get injured again. So they need to
Right.
take him really slow and take care of him, because I know in this moment, Noah Allen is thinking, crap, I have the World Cup. I'm going to miss everything. I'm going to miss it with the team. I'm not going to go to the World Cup. So he's going to try to get back as soon as possible. But with these injuries, especially these medial crucial ligament injuries, players do come back, but they get injured then in the next play when they come back, in the match that they come back. So Inter Miami needs to be very careful with him.
Right.
They need to take care of him, and they need to help him, especially in the mental side of things, because he's gonna
Right.
want to come back
Right.
and want to come back earlier. And listen,
Which is normal, right? It's normal. As a
yeah, it's
player, you
normal.
want to come back. You
Yeah,
want to get
especially
back on the field. You want to compete. You want to play. You want to try to fight for
exactly.
minutes. But that's why you have coaches. That's why you have medical staff. If slow and steady is
Slow and
better,
steady,
then
exactly.
that's absolutely the approach. Especially since the Under-20 World Cup is in May. It's in May. So
Exactly.
another setback. That could really put him in jeopardy of missing that World Cup, because then you're not really playing. You're not even practicing. Can an Under-20 head coach afford to take you if you're not, not only not healthy or at your healthiest, but also not in form? These are things that coaches weigh. So I agree with you. They have to go slow and steady here. Unfortunate for Inter Miami. Unfortunate for Noah Allen, given that he was
Yeah,
off to a good preseason.
and in terms of the team, Franco, they brought someone in, but I guess this means that we're not gonna see so much of Gibbs playing as a central defender like you saw him play in that match.
I would not be so sure about that, Andrea. I would not be so sure, and we can disagree here if you want. I think. I mean, listen. I think he's an option there.
Yeah, I
No
agree.
doubt.
He's an option, especially because if Sergey is not 100%, you're gonna need, and you play with a back five, you're gonna need someone.
But I think Sergi starts. I think Sergi starts week one. Like Phil said that they expect him to get minutes here. I don't know if it was either against CF Montreal or against Austin FC. I'm blanking on which one he said, but it didn't sound like Phil Neville
Yeah, it's
was overly
nothing
worried.
serious. Yeah, it's nothing serious. But listen, I I I still don't trust what they tell us, because they said the same thing with Corentin John, and we didn't see him any 10, 20 minutes last season. So
Right, of course.
we have to wait and see.
There's
Yeah.
you can perceive it or
But I think either Nate is gonna be the starter there.
Yanez is
but you
100%
have
the starter.
So I think Inter Miami will miss Noah Allen in some moments, because he brings different stuff than Nady and Gibbs, especially in attack. But I think they're gonna do well in his absence.
Well, let's see, because I think Gibbs will probably be looked at as much as a center back as he is a left back, if not more. If not more. I don't know if maybe his body, just given the injury history of late, maybe he just can't give you that recorrido. He can't give you that back and forth play that you need when you're a fullback or a wingback.
And listen, that happens a lot when
That happens, especially when you're older. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So you got to change the positions. Maybe be put in a position where it's not as physically taxing or demanding. In terms of a running standpoint. Yes, you're gonna have to. You're gonna go shoulder to shoulder with some big forwards, some powerful forwards, but you don't have to do necessarily as much running. Not as much ground to cover. So let's see how that position plays out. But I do agree with you. Franco Negri is going to be the starter from everything that we. I think we could pretty much name the starting 11. Maybe that'll be my final thought. I'll just throw out what I think the starting 11 will be. All right, quickly, a couple more players before we wrap up this first segment. One is Drake Callender, who re-signed with Inter Miami on a deal that runs through 2025 with an extension, with a team option for 2026. A deserved reward after a breakout season in 2022. They're locking him up long term. Inter Miami has a starting goalkeeper for the foreseeable future. Inter Miami tiene un uno para rato. Andrea, what do you think about Drake Callender's future? How do you see his potential being? Because last year was very good. Last year was very good for the most part. I mean, he had his downs, but it was mostly up, and he was a standout performer. He was amongst, I would say, top 3, maybe top 5. I would say probably top 3 in terms of the regular season performance. I think I would go Higuaín, Campana, Calendar. That's what I would go with. Maybe McVay's in the conversation there for 3. I know you don't necessarily agree, but what are your thoughts on Calendar's potential and where his future, or what his future could be here at Inter Miami?
Listen, if he keeps getting better, I think he's gonna be a starter for Inter Miami for many years to come. That is why they gave him a new contract, a better contract, with an option. I think Drake Calendar needs to keep working. There are aspects of his game that he can get better. And if he does get better, his future can be greater than Inter Miami. He can go to a national team. He can go to maybe to play abroad. I think he has a talent. I think he needs to fix some issues, but I think he's a good goalkeeper.
Most notably, Andrea, because I feel like you're just beating around the bush there, not being direct with me and the listeners. Where specifically, if there's one area specifically that he has to get better in your opinion, where is it?
He has to get better with his feet.
Absolutely. 100%.
And not only just getting passes or passing the ball, but also getting the ball out and getting his teammates in a better position. Because as a goalkeeper, your job is not only to stop, but your job is to begin play. So I think he needs to do better in that aspect of the game.
So his distribution, I would say it's above average in terms of in terms of his long kicks, but in terms of receiving the ball, feeling comfortable on the ball, making passes under pressure, I think that's where I agree with you. I think he needs work. We saw a mistake in the game against St. Louis City on a back pass that he wasn't able to trap well, and it got away from him and went out for a corner kick. Mistakes like that you can't afford in the regular season. Yes, preseason, fine if it happens there, knock off the rust, but you can't afford that in the regular season. And that did happen against CF Montreal last year in the final game of the regular season, if you recall. There was a back pass from Damian Lowe, and Drake Calendar doesn't sense I don't know if it was
danger.
Kyoto, but he doesn't sense the danger. He lacks a little bit of urgency there, and the ball gets taken from him and ends up in the back of the net. He does need to get better. I don't think he's going to ever be, Nick Romando or Nick Marsman. I don't think he's ever going to get to that level, but can he improve? Absolutely. He's a young goalkeeper.
Listen, he can improve. And you don't have to get to those levels to be a good goalkeeper for your team. And I think if he keeps working hard, he's gonna be a starter for Inter Miami for many years. But listen, you have to, as an American goalkeeper, you have to look at the goalkeepers that are going to Europe, like Matt Turner and Zach Steffen. They are also not good players with their feet, but they both went and got contracts abroad and are playing outside of the country. So I guess Drake Calendar has that example. And if he wants to stay, I guess he has a home in Inter Miami for many years because the work is there. He has gotten better. He's a good goalkeeper. If you talk about just saves, he's a good goalkeeper. He has talent. He has a good vision to make good saves. So I think he's going to get better, and that is why Inter Miami made the decision to offer him a better contract and for more time.
I think he's got a good read of the game. I think he's good at cutting down angles. I think he's got good instincts and reactions. Still think he needs to work on his commanding of the penalty area, and obviously he's a young goalkeeper, so maybe that will come with time as he develops a little bit more. Not only comfort and experience, but also feels a little more comfortable, takes on more responsibility, develops more of a personality within the group. I think that will come. But yeah, as far as the feet thing goes, I don't. There's only so far he's going to get. I also think Inter Miami needs to at some point accept that there's going to be limitations there and not put him in positions to potentially struggle. You got to play positions and put the players in positions to succeed. If he's not great with his feet, then I'm not saying I'm not saying never pass him the ball, but don't necessarily drill it in him.
Use it.
That he has to pass out of the back. First, or if that's the priority.
And listen, the thing with MLS and these players that come from college and that come from that aspect is that until they get to the MLS, they start to learn stuff. So you have to give him a little bit of time to adapt, and also with calendar, you have to see that he was the number two, and it's important for him always to keep his head on top because in any moment he has also a quality goalkeeper as a number two. So if he la deja ir, se deja ir, as we say in Spanish, Marsman is going to take his place.
Well, Marsman's chomping at the bit back there, surely.
Exactly.
I can't imagine Marsman is overly content with being the number two, but that looks to be what the depth chart is, and it makes sense based off of the form that we've seen. One more player here to talk about, and that's Gregory. Phil Neville said on Tuesday of this week that Inter Miami is close to signing Gregory to a new deal. Now, there's been a lot of reports, a lot of rumors. Phil Neville even said we can't deny those, that Gregory has been linked with teams back in his native Brazil. What do you make of what Phil Neville said about a new deal in the works for the captain and the Brazilian midfielder?
Well, I think they needed to make that new deal with Gregory because if not, he was going to be a designated player.
Muy bien, Andrea. Muy bien. Yes, that's my read 100%.
Yeah. So I guess if they're making a new deal, it's because they didn't take any money from him, but just they gave him maybe an year extra or something like that. Like that works in MLS, nowhere else in the world, but in MLS it does. So I guess that is what they are going to announce. And with that, I don't think that the Brazilian teams that wanted him or the team that wanted him is going to compete with the salary that he's going to get for the years he's going to get them. But the read that I have is that they are going to give him a year extra, the same amount of money, but divided in between years. So he's not a designated player, and they have a free designated player spot.
Yeah, that's how I interpret it. That they're buying time, right? Like they can extend his stay and maybe pay him a little bit less now, while telling him they'll pay him more they'll pay him another year.
Exactly.
And then that gives them, what's the word? Stability.
Stability.
Yeah, stability. Yes. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what that means for Busquets.
Yeah.
I don't know. Listen, I also think this. This is what I also think. This is also another interpretation I have, and I could see being the case. Although, Phil Neville said, anyway, I could see Phil just, it'd be public posturing to try to get more money out of the Brazilian teams that are maybe vying for his services. But I would venture to guess maybe more on the other side that, that they want to give him stability, to remove that DP slot from him, to give themselves more flexibility for the summer. And what that means for Busquets, not sure. That maybe this means that Busquets is not coming. Yeah, I won't rule it out, but if they're re-signing Gregory, I think it looks a bit more bleak with regards to Busquets' arrival, which could be for better or for worse depending on your viewpoint.
No, and I guess maybe Busquets said, "Oh, now we're winning with Barca. I want to stay another year," so he doesn't want to come right now.
There's all types of rumors. There's all types of rumors. There's also Al-Nassr with Cristiano Ronaldo wants Busquets. There's all different types of rumors regarding Busquets. So
yeah, exactly. So Busquets, in the moment that he said that he was interested in MLS, Barca was living a bad moment. But now they're in a good moment. So who knows? But Inter Miami are making moves, maybe not for Busquets, but if they announce Gregory's new contract and it's like we're saying it's going to be, then I think we can expect them looking at other designated players to bring in the summer.
All right, Andrea, very quickly, something we didn't touch on last week's podcast, or 2 weeks ago, because it just had a jam-packed show, and I want to touch on it here. Did David Beckham just go rogue and post Inter Miami's jersey? Did he officially reveal it? I know it's been leaked online, and we've seen it, and we've put it out there, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But did David Beckham just kind of go do his own thing? And a couple of weeks ago, just post himself and a few of his kids in the new Inter Miami jersey, which is apparently going to be called La Noche, which makes sense because that's what our team name will be called on Tuesday. So did Beckham just go on his own? Because the team didn't put out anything until Wednesday, February 15th. The day after Valentine's Day, there was finally a tease of the jersey officially from a team channel. Now
And
the
that is
jersey,
because MLS has the presentation of all the jerseys has to be done from today to the 18th. So that
and,
is why they did it.
and Inter Miami will officially reveal the jersey on Saturday against Austin FC. That's the day that you'll see the jersey officially, quote. I'm doing the quotation mark fingers here. Well, I mean, yes, but it's unofficial because the team didn't. The team didn't do it. Beckham
but he's
did
the
it.
team.
I guess you're not wrong.
He gave one to Maluma, to Mark Anthony for the wedding, so it was fun.
What are your thoughts on that, though? What are your thoughts? Is it like? Because
it's good marketing, man. If you see Maluma and Mark Anthony wearing the shirt,
I feel like it's kind of odd that Beckham
it is. But listen,
would just
Beckham
do his own thing, and the team because normally the team and owner or Beckham, I imagine they would coordinate together, right?
Yes.
Like, all right, you can, they don't have to ask him for permission. He's one of the owners, but I imagine they would work together, and Beckham's like, all right, I'm going to post it, and the team would be like, all right, let's build around that, and let's do this.
That is the weird part for me. The weird part for me is not that he did it, because listen, he's the one that has that has an Adidas contract for the rest of his life, so it doesn't surprise me that he did it that way. And then he gave it to his kids, who are also famous, and to Maluma and to Mark Anthony and everyone at the wedding. So it's good publicity. The thing for me is, why didn't the team take advantage of that? Why didn't they?
I don't know if they officially can, right? Because it's like you said,
but MLS has its rules, so I guess maybe that's.
But that's why, to me, there's more behind this. I don't know what it is, but there's more behind Beckham just going rogue and saying, "I'm releasing this jersey on my Instagram feed 2 weeks before or 3 weeks before we can actually do so via MLS channels." I mean, what was Don Garber going to do? Call David Beckham and be like, "Excuse me, sir, you're not supposed to." Like, no. I mean, even if he did, David would probably just laugh in his face and be like, "All right, buzz off."
Adidas has a contract with Beckham for the rest of his life, and MLS does not. So who are they going to prefer?
Well, So it's just interesting to me. Very curious. Yeah. I definitely think there's more behind the story.
It's a power play. It's a power play. I think it's a power play from Beckham.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's leave it there.
Maybe
we'll see the
jersey. Like the rules.
Maybe, or maybe I don't know. I don't know what it could be. We could speculate a lot about what it could be. But interesting development there. A small little note, but maybe something that we find out later on isn't so small.
Yeah.
But all right, let's leave it there, Andrea. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back for a quick Q&A session, final thoughts, and we'll do that after this. All right, Andrea, Q&A time. We'll do another quick one. Can't get to them all, unfortunately, but again, don't get discouraged. Stay in with us. We will get to yours as we rotate around. First question comes from Raymond _so rare. I don't know. I don't know what the pronunciation of that is, but I see it a lot on Twitter. Anyway, he asks, what is happening with Marsman? He can't stay the backup. Andrea, we touched on this a little bit. What do you think? Can he stay the backup?
With the money that he's making, yes.
I mean, from his personal standpoint, but
footballistically, it's not the ideal situation for him. But listen, he's one of the best paid players in the team, so I understand why he is staying.
I would say, yeah, he can stay the backup. Yeah. One, from a personal standpoint, because he probably wants to compete and be the number one. Like any competitor wants to be a starter, or most competitors. But he's winning a good chunk of coin here in South Florida, living with his family. At this point in his life, at this point in his career, maybe he could be somewhat content with not being the starter.
Agree.
At the same time, based on his form and based on the things we've seen, I don't think he deserves to be the number one. Does he have qualities that can help Inter Miami that maybe Drake Callender doesn't offer, especially with the ball at his feet? Yes. But we've also seen Nick Marsman make some blunders, that have proven costly. Not to say that we haven't from Drake Callender, but Nick Marsman, I think, has had more of them. All right, next question, Andrea. And this is a good one. This is a funny one. from Don Cafecito. We'll wrap up the Q&A session
My
here.
favorite question ever of my time being in the podcast.
There you go. Some nice, lofty, praising words for Don Cafecito. Do you hate Valentine's Day as much as Phil Neville does? Now, before we answer this, we have to explain or elaborate here. Phil Neville tweeted out on Valentine's Day at 2:50 p.m. the following words. Quote, "Not a fan of Valentine's Day. Love should be every day, not one day a year. Heart emoji." End quote. All right, Phil Neville expressing his thoughts on love on Valentine's Day. All right, I did not know we would be talking about this on Miami Total Football Radio, but alas, here we are. Andrea, do you hate Valentine's Day as much as Phil Neville does?
No, I don't hate Valentine's as much as Phil Neville does because, listen, well, maybe you can watch it in the perspective like he's saying love with your husband or wife or your girlfriend, boyfriend. But listen, Valentine's is also about friendship and love with your friends and all of that. So I think it's good to have a special day to celebrate with your loved ones, with your special ones, not only your husband and your wife or girlfriend, but your friends. Listen, if you're single, you can celebrate also with your friends. So I don't agree with Phil.
I celebrated with my friends on Tuesday night. Went out for some tacos. It was Taco Tuesday as much as it was Valentine's Day. So I had tacos on Tuesday. I mean, I'd be curious to hear what Jose did for you on Tuesday night, but we'll save that romantic anecdote for another podcast.
Listen, I'm going to say, and I will repeat what I said in the beginning. Jose will launch a formal complaint against Inter Miami because they put us against each other in the media game, and that can destroy the piece that was made in Valentine's Day. So it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be funny, and we'll keep you posted on what happens. I'm gonna say he did good on Valentine's, so I don't hate Valentine's like you.
Yeah. So to answer the question more directly on my behalf, I don't hate Valentine's Day, and I don't think Phil hates Valentine's Day. I think, listen, I understand. I think I understand the point he was trying to make in saying that like love should be celebrated every day as opposed to just one day where everyone starts posting on social media and takes their significant other out on a special day. I understand the point. It's just another day that people celebrate on. I mean, you should give thanks every day, right? Should you only give thanks on Thanksgiving? If you're in the United States, no, you should give thanks every day. But there's a day to especially celebrate or commemorate it. So do I dislike Valentine's Day? No, I do not. Phil Neville, very passionate about his opinion on Valentine's Day. All right, let's leave it there for the Q&A session. Andrea, quick final thoughts, then I'll give mine, then we'll wrap up the show after that.
Well, my final thoughts for this week is about some commentary that I've been getting from some fans of Inter Miami that are a little bit disappointed with the lack of viewing that they've gotten in this preseason with the team and with all the matches being closed door and nobody broadcasting them. Here in the United States, they did broadcast the Vasco da Gama game, but not here in the States. So I wanted to talk about the position the league is in right now with the deal with Apple. Hopefully people do buy the package because especially for Inter Miami here in South Florida, not having them on TV, I think is going to have a great impact because you had them first for free on your television and now you will have to pay to watch the games if you cannot go to the stadium. So I think that's something that the team needs to acknowledge and needs to work and needs to maybe be a little bit more transparent with the content and with the games and with what they're doing for the fans.
I am curious about that from an Inter Miami standpoint because it's kind of been like that since the inception. Like, why so secretive? Like, the other teams are tweeting out results and live recaps. Other teams are sending out press releases with scores, and Inter Miami just kind of goes mute.
Listen,
I don't really understand why. Maybe because they're David Beckham's team, and any result can draw a headline. Maybe, and they don't want to make a big fuss about losses, like losing 4-2 or 4-0.
But listen, like today, they tweeted the preview of La Noche, but they didn't tweet like we're playing Montreal.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Montreal did on their Twitter like we're playing
why
Inter
so
Miami, but we cannot post anything. So I was like,
but why so secretive? Why? Like, I don't
understand that. And listen, that we talked about, we received some questions in like 2 weeks ago, I think, in the podcast where fans were asking us why don't they go to West Palm Beach or to Homestead or to those areas. Listen, that is going to affect, because not everyone can afford to pay those $15 that the Apple package brings just to watch Inter Miami. So they need to do a better job with that. So I wanted to really bring it on here because I've received comments about that and about the secretividad, I don't know how to say that in English, the team has.
So my final thought, I'll go with what I said earlier. I'll give my quick, and this is jumping into next week's pod, but I'll give a quick what I think is a starting 11 for week 1 of the regular season. I think you'll see Drake Callender in goal. I'm saying 5 at the back. You can say it's 5 in the middle, whatever. I'm saying DeAndre Yedlin. I'm saying Sergi. I'm saying Christopher McVeigh. And I'm saying one of Ryan Saylor. I mean, Mabika. I'd probably say Mabika just because Saylor's been out dealing with an injury for a portion or a part of preseason. And then I think you have Franco Negri as the left wing back. The midfield 3, I think Gregory as the 6. Nicola Stefanelli and Jean Mota as your 2 8s, your 2 box-to-box midfielders. Up top, Leonardo Campana and Ariel Lassiter. That's what I think Inter Miami will go with to start week 1. Now, if someone gets injured from here until then, well, then that changes things. But as of today, that's what I think I project the starting lineup to be on match day 1 against CF Montreal. Now, that does it for this week's show. And the next show, when we come back next week, we'll be talking about our media game, which I know you guys are definitely can't wait to hear. Just kidding. But we'll be talking about the start of the regular season, which will be upon us. The first game, some excitement. We'll be back in the stadium for a game that matters. So plenty to chew on, plenty to dissect, plenty to talk about. And time to make some predictions. Time to make some preseason predictions, just like we did last year. And it'll be the entire squad of us, hopefully. So, for Andrea Yanez, I am Franco. You have been listening to Miami Total Futbol Radio. And we'll talk to you guys again